This video is sponsored by Storyblocks. Hey beautiful people, I'm Lucy and today we are talking all about how to edit dark and moody photos, how to get that really cool dark, gritty, sort of desaturated look in your images. Now the one thing I will say is that certain types of images definitely lend themselves to this look. So I'm going to be using a nighttime photo for this tutorial. If you have a nighttime photo in your sort of repertoire, then pull that up and edit along with me and it'll make it a lot of fun. All right, so you might have noticed that my Lightroom screen looks a little bit different. That's just because today I'm using Lightroom CC. I normally use Lightroom Classic, but I wanted to try CC out a little bit more. And for the most part, these two are very, very similar and have most of the same features. So whether today you're on Classic or CC, you can still follow along with this tutorial. But also guys, let me know if you would prefer my Lightroom tutorials to be on Lightroom CC or Lightroom Classic. I want to know what you guys are using the most and what would be the most helpful for you. All right, so we have this photo here, and as you can see, it already is a kind of moody vibe. We have it's at nighttime, it's dark, we have the lights, also just the context of the photo. We have the Motel Super 7, and then we have this like kind of car here, and there's the drive-through coffee place. Like, it's just kind of like a moody photo. Now, the thing that I find that people do in a lot of their edits normally is you go ahead and you bring down the highlights and you bring up the shadows. In moody photos, this does not work at all. And that's because being moody, it's almost about what you don't see, right? So you want to create some intrigue, almost a bit of mystery. So if you bring up the shadows and everything is totally visible, well, there's no mystery left, right? So you don't really want to go that route. If anything, you want to have some more areas of your photos that are very, very dark, almost like a complete black point, because it makes your photo more interesting and it draws the eye. So in this photo, the first thing I would actually do is I might take the exposure down a little bit, and then I would bring up the contrast a bit too. And what that does is it brings all the dark points down even more and boosts the light points. So the main focus on this image is all the points of light that we have happening. That's what we want to work with. So you can play around with the highlights a bit because you might want things to show up a little bit more. I find when I do that on the Motel and the Super 7, it's coming down a bit too much. So I think I would go through and do that more selectively. We can look at shadows and say, do we even want them a little bit darker? In my case, I do want them a little bit darker. So you can see we haven't done too much yet, but we're just kind of playing with the colors and the contrast, kind of trying to create a bit more of a mood right off the bat. So here we are at that. At this point, the next thing I would do is jump into the tone curve. I'm not going to do too much with it, but I do want to give those black points a bit of a faded look. And that is just because there is so much black in this photo. I want to give it a little bit of dimension. So you click there to get the tone curve in Lightroom CC. And what I'm going to do is actually just tap on this target adjustment. So you can click that there. And then I'm going to find like the darkest point of the image. And then you can actually just slide it to get it where you want. So basically I'm just like fading this black, just kind of mattifying it a little bit, just because there's so much in this image. So I'll just keep pulling that until I'm happy with it around there. After you do that, you might find like, oh, I need to go bring the black down a little bit more. But at that point, I'm pretty happy with that. So again, now we can go look at the before and the after. So we've created a bit more contrast, it's darker, and now we've given it a bit of a matte look. The next thing is working with color. I find in moody photos, having a bit more of a desaturated look really, really works. And it works really well if you kind of pick one or two colors that you do want to keep or even pump up in your photo. So overall in this image, I am going to take the saturation and I'm going to just bring it down a little bit. And now I'm going to go into the color mixer tool and we're going to play with the specific colors. So we kind of had a red pink happening here and more of an orange happening here. I'm not super into the orange color. So I'm gonna go click on orange and I'm gonna bring down the saturation on that. And we can even play with the luminance a bit too. So do we want that to be brighter or do we want it to be a bit darker? Now in nighttime, orange is within all of these lights. So you can see any light when I play with the luminance is affected. So for that one, I will just move it up a little bit, but not too much. Now I'm gonna go over into the red, and this I definitely do want to be more saturated. I might wanna play with bringing the luminance down here because sometimes when you actually bring it down, things become more visible, but you're gonna wanna play with it. So on the motel, when I bring it down, maybe it's a bit more clear, but when I bring it up, it kind of looks glowy. So it's honestly, it's just subjective. Like both look good, it's just a different kind of good. So I'm gonna go for the glowier look. And I am gonna lean the hue more on the red side. I do feel like it has a pinkish tone to it. I want it to look more like a true kind of red. Yeah, why not? Let's pump that a little bit more. So I'm happy with the overall colors happening in the image. Next, I'm gonna go into effects and I'm gonna add some grain. I always think grain is moody and vibey, so you can add that in. Click this if you want to sort of play with the size of the grain and the roughness. I usually make it like more rough and then smaller. We're gonna go into detail. Because this is a nighttime photo, I would increase the noise reduction a little bit, but that's all that really needs there. But if you do nighttime photos, always make sure you have color noise reduction on and a bit of noise reduction, and it can really save your nighttime photos. It's awesome. In terms of just like the geometry and crop, I'm actually happy with how this is. We'll just rotate it maybe a little bit. Click constrain crop, and that looks really good. So this is my basic edit. There's the before, there's the after, giving it that kind of moodier look to it. Now the next thing that I do is I go a lot in with the brushes and the gradient filters. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick this brush up, and I actually don't like how bright this is, but when I tried to take the luminance down, it did it on everything. So I need to do a targeted brush right there. So I'm gonna just bring down the exposure a little bit, bring down the highlights and the whites, and then we'll just kind of cover over this. Just because it seemed to be a bit distracting. I want those lights to shine through, but maybe not so much. Always make sure to check where you are on your flow and density. If it's lower, then you need to go over your things a couple times to get that look that you really want. So that's why I'm kind of like hovering over that a bunch. So that's looking good. I'm gonna actually pick another brush. I'm gonna increase the flow and the density. And this time I'm gonna bring highlights down, maybe even the shadows. And I'm basically just gonna go and paint in a few spots where I want it to be darker. So in here, along that sidewalk there, and that kind of like garbage can, I'm just kind of like that parking lot over there and like that whole area. Just paint out kind of anything that you find distracting in your image. Even over here, like a little bit, that could be a little bit less. That could too. So, and then just see if you like where it's at. So then you can kind of just play with where that's at. I just want all those kind of elements to be a little bit darker. So I think that that is looking really good. The next thing that I might do is actually go and enhance a couple of the lights now. So now I will warm that up, and I'll warm up the brush, and over things like this that maybe I want to stand out a little bit more, be a little bit warmer. So it's all kind of creating where you want people, their eye to be taken to. So I like that one there. These two are kind of interesting. I'll do that. And that looks good. And then I think for the very last sort of brush, this is where you really want to take the attention exactly where you want it to be. So I'm going to increase the clarity and the sharpness, and I'm going to go right over all of these kind of signs over here, because I just like the contrast of like this side of the image and this side of the image. It's just like kind of very interesting. It's very stark to see the two things beside each other. So just kind of hover over that like that. Now, this next step is something that I think in moody photos, the linear gradient tool is amazing, and you should 100% use it because it just adds so much kind of depth into your image. So what I do with this is you're gonna click on that. I'm gonna bring down the exposure and the highlights again. It's all kind of about leading people with light. That's sort of what we're doing in this image here. I'm gonna take this up from the bottom, and that's just because, again, I want to be kind of shaping where people are looking, and if I can take this out, then that would be great. So you can see that's the red, that's what we're actually highlighting and changing, but it kind of goes in a gradient, so it gives it this really nice natural look to it, and we're just kind of hiding some more things that we don't want really to focus on in this image. I'm gonna do it as well from the top and also from both sides. And really what this is doing is we're really focusing in on the center of the image. We're taking out those distractions and it's really starting to come together. So let's look at the before. Still like an interesting photo visually to look at, I think. There's the after we've kind of gone ahead and made it moodier and darker, a little bit grittier. At this point you could go forward and you could like put a filter on it, you could add some more grain to it, and you can kind of just go ahead and play with the colors. Looking at it now, I think maybe some of that orange I want to bring back just to contrast with the darkness of the image. Yeah, I think actually bringing that orange back into it is kind of key, because those warm lights against like the darkness all around it is actually really, really nice. So there's the before and there's the after we've gone in and we've made those changes. So I hope you guys have fun editing your dark and moody photos. I have to say a big thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Storyblocks gives you access to an unlimited library of over 1 million assets, and that includes video clips, B-roll clips, drone clips, graphics, templates, really anything that you need to take your video to the next level. And what I love about Storyblocks is your creativity is not limited at all. You don't have to worry about anything because all the clips, everything is completely royalty free for commercial and personal use. So you can really just have fun with it. So for example, with this moody photo, you could go look for some moody video clips to sort of add to it. If you were doing something for a client, say this is social media, you could get video clips to complement it so that they could make more content around it. Or you could add a cool background to this photo. You could add a flare or lens, or you could add some gritty textures over top of it. Or even on this headlight, we could put like a flickering light in it. So there is so much that you can do with Storyblocks. Literally a million things are at your fingertips to add to your photos and your videos. So if you guys want to check out Storyblocks, click that link in the description below. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, that makes me really smile, and I guess I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.